My name is Megan Middleton. I'm the Director of Advancement in the Faculty of Science, and I am pretty excited to both host and moderate our sixth annual International Women's Day High Tea Social. That's something that we started during the dreaded COVID, and so I'm really excited that it continues to have a great response 6 years later. But before we go any further, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that, do a land acknowledgement. So here at the University of Waterloo, we acknowledge that much of our work takes place on the traditional territory of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples. Our main campus is situated on the Haldeman Tract, the land granted to the Six Nations that includes 6 miles on each side of the Grand River. It's a virtual event. Many of our panelists and participants are also joining us from the traditional territories on which they live and work. Our active work towards reconciliation takes place across our campuses through research, learning, teaching, and community building, and is coordinated within the Office of Indigenous Relations. Quick housekeeping notes then before we actually get to bring the panelists on. So the session's being recorded, and it will be posted to the Faculty of Science YouTube channel as soon as we get there. As an attendee, your cameras and microphones are off. So like normal, don't worry, we can't see you. But we welcome you to participate in the chat, as I mentioned. We also will have a Q&A that I will try and keep track of, and so we will answer as many questions as we can. We'll probably take a little pause midway through and then get to some of the questions at the end as well. I suspect by now that everybody knows how to use Zoom, but just in case, I suggest gallery view as it'll give you the best experience while we're here today. And Give to Gain, hashtag Give to Gain is the hashtag for this year's International Women's Day. So anything that you want to put on social media, please tag us and please tag Give to Gain. So it is now my pleasure to actually get started and introduce the panelists. So I'm going to introduce them. They will pop onto the screen, give you a quick introduction about themselves, and then we'll get started. So Diana, if you'd like to join us and give a quick introduction.
Hi, I'm having some technical difficulty. Hi, everybody. I think you can see me now. I saw someone else in BC here. That's great. I'm based out of Vancouver, BC. I'm a proud science and business grad from 2005. I'm excited to be here today to engage with a number of alumni, which I'm very impressed and happy to see, as well as students, and also with our impressive panelists here. It's a really nice time to bond with other women on International Women's Day. I am currently working as the head of corporate development at DuckDuckGo, best known as our private search engine.
Thank you. And then we've tried something different this year. So, oh, Diana, I think you might get to stay on the screen. If I know if it's working. Sorry, everyone.
It's
This will be the year
it's
we have all the,
glitching, but thank
yeah,
you.
right? Right? 6 years in, all of a sudden the technology decided it doesn't want to participate. This year we're trying something new, and we've actually got a current student joining us. So, Talina, if you'd like to come on and introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Talina Papazian. I'm currently a third year student at the University of Waterloo and I'm studying biomedical sciences. My goal is to go into pediatric medicine one day, and I'm also the author and founder of an organization called You Taught Me, and we aim to empower young people to champion inclusion and accessibility for children with disabilities. And so in that nature, my visual description is that I am a young lady with light skin, I have dark hair down to my shoulder length, and then I'm also wearing a blue shirt.
Thank you, Talina. Next, some of you may have met Charmaine in a previous year, but Charmaine, if you'd like to come on and introduce yourself. Uh-oh. There we go.
Hi, everyone. My name is Charmaine. Yes. Thank you, Megan. Hi, everyone. My name is Charmaine Rodriguez. I live in the USA in New Jersey with my husband and our 13-year-old son. I work as a senior manager in regulatory affairs at LVMH Beauty, and I'm also a happy member of the University of Waterloo's Chemistry Advisory Council. As Megan mentioned, this is my second time at this High Tea Social, and I'm thrilled to be invited back. I'm really excited about this year's theme, Gift to Gain, because giving is something that I try to be intentional with, especially in the past year or so. And I really can't wait to share some thoughts with you today, along with our illustrious panelists. So thank you.
Thanks, Charmaine. I should have also said that Diana is joining us for her second year here, so we're really excited about this. And when I said we're trying something new, I'd also like to invite Gina. So Gina is in fact not an alumnus of the University of Waterloo, but does work for Canadian Nuclear Laboratories, who has been a great champion. And Gina will be here today to tell us in all the ways in which she also champions Give to Gain. Gina.
Yeah, thanks. It's so exciting to be part of your panel today and part of this International Women's Day event. Gina Strati, the director of the Academic Partnership Program at Canadian Nuclear Laboratories, which is a couple of hours outside of Ottawa on the Ottawa River. I am not, as Megan mentioned, a Waterloo alumni, although after meeting these wonderful women, I kind of wish I was. But my connection to Waterloo is through my work with the University of Waterloo. I've been able to really enable some scholarships and promoting some activities with women in science and women in engineering. And also this year, we helped to support a nuclear research activity, a nuclear research challenge that was multidisciplinary. And it was a great way to get our researchers, right in there working with students and mentoring them over the weekends. So lots of great opportunities at Waterloo to give and participate in all these student events. Thanks.
Thanks, Gina. I think we can safely say you can be an honorary UW science alum. No problem. We're proud to have you. So I hope everyone is excited as I am. This is a great group of women. And I think that means we can just dig right in. So, in one of our previous conversations as a group, one thing that really came through was I would say, similar but slightly different inspirations that we each take and why we choose to give. So that could be both financially and volunteering. So, would love to hear from you, and perhaps Gina, because you are still on, if you wanted to start with what inspires you to give to gain.
Yeah, thanks. So really, for me, I think and I'm sure many people feel this way. I think my parents really influenced my desire to give and give back. I'll call my mother a very quiet giver, so it was not uncommon to see her knitting something for the church bazaar or cooking and baking to provide something for the bazaar. Uh, Having a phone call to maybe family members if people were in need of donations for furniture or clothing. I call her a quiet donator because she would never have been the one to organize the event or drive around and collect everything, but she was always there and always giving something, and it became just a part of what we did. And my father also very quietly gave, and when he passed away, a number of people told me, boy, your father, he would give you the shirt off his back. And I thought, wow, I never really viewed my dad like that. It was just something he did. So that just, becomes a part of who you are. And I guess that's my greatest inspiration for giving.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Charmaine, I think you actually have a very similar reason that you started to get involved.
Yeah, so yeah, very similar. I think the person who's inspired me most to give back is my mom. She passed away last year, and at her service, it was all about, a lot of people spoke about how she gave, and she was really an excellent cook. And so this was her talent, her gift. And so this was how she expressed her love for people. And she lived in Waterloo. So her and her friends would host a lot of students over after church. They would help students by feeding them. This was how they showed that they cared. And so it became really apparent to me last year just how she was that, similar to Gina, that quiet giver, right? So she wouldn't broadcast what she was doing, but there were so many people that she fed and impacted in her life. So I think for me, it's just being able to model that spirit of generosity in my life, just to not only do what is right, but just to honor her as well. So I think just continuing that cycle of giving back, I think is really important to me, and it's really inspired me. So I'm just thankful for, the legacy that she left for me.
Thanks, Charmaine. I love this idea of quiet giver. I didn't write that down the last time we chatted, Gina, but I think that that's a thread that we'll pull into to one of the other themes that we had talked about. And on the topic of parents, so the group's heard this, and I'm going to get through this without a tear, I swear. My first experience was when I was telling the group I had a girlfriend who was a kindergarten teacher, and she asked her class one year what everybody had asked Santa for. And this little girl said that all she wanted was a doll whose head didn't fall off. But then when she asked her mom said that Santa probably couldn't afford to bring a doll like that. And that was my first opportunity I have an 11-year-old who's actually crawling on the ground right now to try and get to the bathroom in this hotel. So that's happening. That was my first opportunity to really understand, what it meant to support somebody else in this quiet way, right? And in a way that is particularly meaningful to someone. So thank you both for sharing. Talina, you also have a family reason for getting involved.
Mine is a little bit different. It's my younger brother was diagnosed with an anaphylactic peanut allergy when I was just 6 years old, and I saw just how quickly our lives changed. We went from, being able to do everything to being surrounded by a lot of fear when it came to food, and celebrations were different, and the way that we interacted with our environment and the world was very different. And so at 6, I didn't really know what it meant and what role I would take in terms of a giver, but today I have the pleasure of being an advocate for the disability community because allergies are a form of disability. And I have the honor of connecting with a lot of different kids across Canada, sharing my story and being like, look, you can also be an incredible giver and you can give back and you can advocate and you can be an ally of the community. So I think mine also stems from a quiet place where I saw a lot of different ways that people also gave to my family and the way that, somebody's just, oh, maybe there's some way I can help you out. Maybe like just asking a question. It doesn't have to be something big, but there were people along the way that definitely stood out in making a positive experience for myself, my brother, and my family. And so I definitely learned a lot from them, and I hope to carry that through the work that I do.
Thank you. Thank you. And Diana, also a family connection to where you started giving.
Yeah, I think it's, I've always had like a real emotional connection to kind of where I give. I think the example that I had mentioned earlier to the group here was the hospital, BC Children's Hospital, that has been really great to my kids. For anyone who's giving birth here or has given birth, understand how difficult that can be and what an emotional experience. And it's one cause that I continue to give to because it's something that affects everyday women, and everyone who has become a mom can really relate to that. And just seeing that the hospital get well funded and give the best care to moms and children, especially um, since I have to deal with kind of like medical issues with my kids all the time, it just feels like something that's natural and keeps me engaged in that realm of giving.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. One of the other things that you said that was really interesting, Diana, when we all chatted was this idea of an equalizer. Now, I think you first mentioned that in the context of education, um, but I've been thinking quite a bit around how, both volunteering, right, and financial support. I suspect many of us, I don't know, use that perhaps as a tool or as a motivation for donating and for engaging. But would love to hear a bit more from the group. Diana, go ahead.
I could start
Yeah.
with that. You know, I mean, it's a good segue for me to mention kind of my interest in giving to Waterloo. My husband and I had recently established a an entrance award for science and business co-op students. And part of the reason why we're thinking about that is thinking about giving as an equalizer because education should be an equalizer for anybody who came from humble beginnings. This is their chance. And this is a personal story for me who had come from a very humble beginning. Where would I be today without my experience here at Waterloo? It's been quite amazing to kind of see my life turn around from starting from getting a good education. And so, I think that that is like a tool for like donating is a tool for other people to kind of get the same education to or like have the opportunity to ease that path of kind of moving forward in education.
Yeah, thank you. I was telling the group for me, it's been to donate to a engineering science quest. So for anybody who doesn't know, you're gonna watch me nerd out for a second, but I was the first group to ever get to go when the camp opened, which will give you some insight into how old I am. And it changed my life. So, as a child, getting to go to a university campus, right? I'm the first person in my family to get a university degree. So to really understand that campus was a place where, anybody could be and to learn about how much I loved science. I'm sure my parents were horrified the first time I came home with having dissected a cow's eye and thought it was so cool. And so that is where I donate now. I make sure my nephew gets to go, but it was in paying for my nephew to go to camp where I realized how prohibitive it is for some families, especially if you've got more than one child who needs to go away for 1 week in a 9-week summer. So I agree. I think this idea of an equalizer. is really interesting and important. But I know Gina, when we spoke, you have a slightly different take on equalization, but I think particularly important in today's conversation with mentoring.
Yeah, so I do try to mentor quite a bit, within my work environment, and I think it's really important. It's important for people to have someone to reach out to bounce ideas off of, just to listen to what some of their challenges are in their career paths. So that's really something that I try to do to help young women in my organization as well. Want to provide them with, just that venue so they can like ask their questions and just get ahead a little bit more easily. I think everyone, whether you're when you're early in your career, whether you're a young woman or a young man or any other gender identification, I think there are a lot of similar concerns and challenges that people have. However, I don't know. I just feel very strongly that sometimes young women have some additional challenges. You don't often see yourself in those leadership roles, and so it's just very important to me that they have someone to talk to, and just to have a voice to be able to work through how they will, address some of those challenges to be successful. So I think that's important and a great equalizer. And although my heart is always in research and science and helping, I also come from some humble beginnings, and the cost of tuition now freaks me out. I think I'd never be able to make it to school, let alone get a PhD in today's day and age. So I do try to prioritize some of my own personal uh, financial contributions also to enable others to have access to that, and also to have access to areas that have less funding, like theater, and encouraging like young playwrights to just have that ability to be able to get their plays written that hopefully I can go see someday.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you. And money, there's so many threads now that I could pull on from that, Gina. Um, I I do though, I want to make sure that we get an opportunity. So Talina, I think your story also, I think, really talks about equalization, but again, in a slightly different way. And you told us a story about a little girl who, what had she forgotten her hearing implants and therefore couldn't participate?
Yeah, so I am in my third year. So currently, I give a lot of my time. So when I was 16, I had the pleasure of volunteering at a children's rehab hospital, which is where all the proceeds from my children's book and my organization now get donated. And at that time, I did not know any sign language or any American Sign Language. And there was this little girl at the camp, and she had, I don't know if they weren't charged or she had forgotten them that day. I'm not sure too sure what the situation with her cochlear implants were that day. However, her pants were wet and she had like fallen into a puddle and she had hurt herself, and she was trying to communicate this with the team at the camp, and unfortunately at that time there was nobody there who spoke ASL or had the basics to understand what she was trying to say. And so this was quite frustrating for her, and it happened early on in the day. And so during our lunchtime, me and a couple of the other volunteers, we kind of were like, this is not fair. Like, why should this person be left out and not be able to share what's going on? And so we kind of picked up a few words here and there from what we could Google on our phone. And then we had the opportunity to go back and we figured out that she had fallen in a puddle and that she had hurt herself and she was trying to ask for ice. And so I think that access in language and providing opportunities for people to share and communicate is super, super important as an equalizer, whether that be through like ACC communication devices, whether that be through having parents of deaf children being able to have access to sign language classes, whether that be just having opportunities where there's like adaptive equipment and adaptive technology or braille signage, anything that basically provides equal opportunities. And I think that a super big part of that is educational resources that equalize what the discussion becomes when we read a book. So, for example, in my children's book, it doesn't talk about disability, it just shows that disability exists. And it just shows a bunch of different kids playing together, and having that in a classroom, I've heard from a couple different people, has been a really great conversation starter and like a great trampoline to bounce off of. And just being able to have discussions that are equal in terms of what we're talking about, and not only having those discussions on certain days, like, oh, national accessibility, we only talk about that during that week. So just having them all year round and having that.
Yeah, thank you. And Charmaine, I'm not sure if the equalization piece, if that really came out while you and I were chatting. I know you had certainly a strong tie to your faith, but the other thing I think is important given your role in the Chemistry Advisory Council is, what Gina mentioned around role models, right? So women being able to see women like them in positions. It was something Diana and I spoke about as well when, we asked Diana to put her name on the award that her family was creating, because I think it's important for young women to see that they are successful, right? Successful, and depending on how you every which way you look at it, women who give back and who are, in a financial position to be able to contribute. But certainly for you as well, you're playing a different role in this advisory council. So curious about your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I can just talk a little bit about yesterday too. I had the opportunity to volunteer through my job. There was a mentorship program, New York City Services. They had a mentorship day for women of color. And through my job, I was able to participate in that. And, a lot of the girls were from specialized high schools here in New York City. And at my table, the project of the day was to help women navigate their career. So they had to build this tree from where they are now to where they wanted to be. And certainly a lot of the women a lot of the girls knew exactly where they wanted to be, but they just didn't really understand what it took to get there. And so, a bunch of us as mentors were able to kind of like, help them to kind of figure out, where do I even start, right? One of the young ladies next to me, she had her paper and her pen, and she's like, I don't know what to write, right? And I was like, well, let's start with where you want to be. And so we were able to say, okay, you want to go to law school, but you want to be a lawyer, but you have to go to law school, right? And how do you get there? So we worked from where she was now to, where she wanted to be. And when she was done, she looked back and she was like, oh, okay. So, she was able to build a path. So I think mentoring and giving back. And I think, just through my experience at Waterloo, just having that great education, that great educational background was able to kind of like push me into careers and give me opportunities that I never even thought I would have had the opportunity to experience. And so, like giving back to, being on the advisory council at Waterloo, it's something that I thought was just so important because I gained so much from my experience there. And so I just feel that sense of responsibility to just kind of like pay it forward, even not with financial means, but even just through my time. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, thank you. And I think, I'm going to open it up to the group here, but certainly anybody in the chat, I think, you've been asked a question around, what's important to you from Give to Gain, how you like to engage, where you like to engage. But one of the things that this group was chatting about, and Charmaine builds on what you were saying, is both role models, but also strong female friends, right? And so this group knows that I play poker with a group of women in their early 60s. They're all math professors. So again, this group has heard that I never win, but it has been transformational in my life to have women who have gone through their careers already, to have the role models, to have the insight. I mean, if I had filled that form in high school, it said I wanted to be a psychiatrist. It did not say that this is where I wanted to be. And if I look back, I'm quite happy that this is where I ended up. And so it is both having a plan, but it is having those people in your life that can help you see where there are opportunities you hadn't thought of, what your skills are, how they can support you, and just, you're right, like what it's like to be a woman, that's great, a woman, right? And it's I do think that's important, and we all talked about that. So, oh, someone's sending hearts, so that's great. Someone else agrees with us in the chat. But would love to hear from the group here, and so whoever would like to get started with that topic, but we can't be on pause for too long.
No. No, I was just gonna comment on what you're saying about the company that you keep. I've always heard that you are the average of the five people that you hang out with the most. And so just pick your circles wisely. And Megan, it's so great to see that you have this amazing circle of math professors. But I think just, in terms of, yeah, just peer mentorship, it's been life-changing for me. And part of it is through the school system, had met some great people, and then kind of further into my career, just meeting folks at work, and I know that your five people in your life actually just change throughout time. There's no like consistent board. Like your board changes as you grow. And that has been so amazing for me to experience in different parts of my life and had also contributed to kind of like where I focus my attention, both on the volunteer side and also on the giving side of it.
Yeah, thank you. I love that. I've heard this idea of a personal board, but hadn't thought about it. And one of the women, I was referring to, we were on our way to a business meeting. We had never worked together. Well, there you can hear my nephew's still here. So we had worked together, but we were going to this business meeting, and halfway to the car ride to Toronto before the meeting had started, she says to me, "How do you feel about women's health?" And I remember thinking, "Oh, this is could potentially be a loaded question, right?" And as we got talking, what she was saying to me is that she was on the board of Shore, which is a rebrand of Planned Parenthood, and they needed some new board members, and so she wanted a fundraiser on their board member or on their board. And again, changed my life, gave me leadership, gave me perspective, right? Gave me all sorts of things that I would have never really thought about in an area that I wouldn't have thought about really committing to until someone had brought it forward. So what a great way to expand your perspective. Who else wants to jump in on this?
Yeah. I can just say something, Megan. And I think even just being here too, I mean, just hearing all the stories from Talina and Diana and Gina, I think and from you, Megan, I think it's really contagious, giving is, right? And so just hearing all the stories kind of really motivates you and props you up to kind of continue the same, right? So I feel for me, I'm always like inspired by stories and inspired by what other people do, especially if it's something, of course, something that's great. And so I think even just being on this panel and having this shared experience right now is really motivating. And so I feel like, once this call is done, I think, it's really kind of like given me joy to kind of even do more. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Guess I
Gina,
can
yeah, go
Yeah, I
ahead,
guess I
please.
can jump in. I think from a role model's perspective, especially as someone who is a young advocate, I was not somebody who loved speaking publicly when I was little. And there was one lady who was a huge role model in my life and was a really silent believer in my abilities. And having those people behind you that, are quietly believing in you, are showing you all the different possibilities and are not giving up on you, even when sometimes you don't believe in yourself, I think are such valuable people. And then now 15 years later, I remember when I was reaching out to people to translate my book into French, she was the first person who came to mind because I was like, if anybody's going to do this, she's going to be the one to do this. And just her belief in me, I think I have now the pleasure of passing that on to other people and other young girls that I meet. And she has just been such an inspiration in the way that she goes after what motivates her, in that she doesn't stop believing in her passions, even if sometimes it does get challenging when you're balancing a million things.
Yeah, thank you. One of the things you and I spoke about too, Talina, was this idea of being a role model, or giving back sort of when you're in your student years, as opposed to, sort of where some of us are slightly more experienced in our life.
Yeah, for sure. I think that the way that I give back also has changed from when I was in first year to now being in third year. When I was in first year, I published my children's book about maybe like a month before stepping foot on campus as a student. And so in those first couple of months, I was really learning about my environment, how to connect people outside of what I had known forever as a kid, and then also just how do I branch out in like a professional manner. And so I think that at the beginning there was a lot of learning involved. And that learning changes, I think, as I've gotten older. So initially I was reaching out to so many different people, and now I'm reaching out to, okay, who are my target customers when it comes to my book? So who really has shown value in this? How do I meet with those people, connect with those people, and then hopefully build those connections to reach other people? Because I think that that becomes so valuable when you start building a community. So I think the way that I approach giving has also changed based on who I'm connecting with and how I'm going about doing that.
Yeah, thank you. We've had some great comments in the chat as well. Karen said she spent this morning judging at a local school's science fair, and feels quite privileged to be able to give to favorite causes financially. It's also tremendously important to be able to volunteer. So I think many of us have had that conversation together and separately. This idea, and Talina just called it out. This idea of at some point in your life, you have time, right? That is in fact the thing that you have. Some of us get to a position where maybe we have slightly less time, but perhaps we're in a financial position to give. I still remember when I finally had enough of a disposable income to start giving $10 a month, and I was thrilled that I was finally in a position to do that. And then, in a conversation with Diana, it was this idea of ideally getting to a point in life where, where we can do both, right? And so, Karen, I think I can speak for all of us that we all agree that it is a real privilege to be able to do both of those and entirely fulfilling to be able to participate like that. Um, G. Ferguson is mentions Girl Guides and what a great way that is to directly impact and influence leadership and women worldwide. I was never allowed to be a Girl Guide. My parents probably saw that that wasn't going to be my skill set, but I have heard great, great things. Did anybody in the group were any of you a Girl Guide? Come on, Charmaine, you got to
I
say
was a
yes now.
brownie. I was a brownie. I was a brownie. But
Okay,
last
good.
year, I actually got to volunteer with the Girl Guides, doing a presentation with them from someone who I know is, I think she's like the president of a Girl Guide group. So that was really cool.
Good. Thanks for not letting us down. It's never actually occurred to me to ask in a group of women, but now I challenge everyone to do this, especially if you've got your 5 board members, how many people in your group were a girl guide? Because the thing I joke about is that I can camp like a champ, but there is no chance I'm keeping us alive, right? Like that canoe oar goes missing and I don't know what we're going to do. And there's no chance I'm going to successfully start and maintain a fire. So perhaps I'm going to do a bit of investigating now on this idea of girl guides. And we have one more here about from volunteered at a hospital to support patients and help them in relieving stress through informal conversation, which I imagine is a particularly meaningful way to give back. On my way to gain training to become a crisis response volunteer. Wow, we've got some pretty impressive people in the group. I believe being healthy, educated. Oh, we've got a poll that just popped up. I don't know how that happened, but I guess you can let us know whether or not you're a girl guide. Um, I believe in healthy, educated, and financially stable is a blessing that makes it necessary for us to give back to the community and help people. Yeah, and I think that's been a really interesting thread through all of us, right? Some of us tie it to our faith, some of us tie it to our parents, some of us tie it to our personal experiences and watching a need for that. So I think that's particularly important. One thing I want to make sure that we have time to chat about was this idea of give to gain on International Women's Day, right? So is it different for women? If it is, how is it different? Is it more important for women? Just want to give the group a chance to really talk through what give to gain means. We'll say today of all days, but we mean International Women's Day. Okay, okay, good.
Yeah.
I'll get started then.
Okay.
How about how about that? Friday afternoon is a tough day to do an event like this. Um, One of the things that we were chatting about again, was this idea of role models, but B, is it true that women give more often from an emotional standpoint, right? Diana was really also talking about this idea. So sorry, I'm going to steal it from you now that you didn't volunteer right away. That as gender roles at home have changed, right now, women. Oh, there's more polls popping up in my face. Um, that women, are now financially in a position to be able to give back. Are the conversations at home changing and how decisions are made from philanthropy? Certainly, as someone, who has fundraising as part of her career, we were always told, right, that women are ultimately the decision makers when it comes to philanthropy. So sorry to all the men who are watching this now or later. But I do think that there's a bit of a shift, right? And again, it goes back to that idea of women being proud philanthropists. And we certainly see it in the States, right? Like it's happening with some big families and some women who are, I think, really understand how important it is to be intentional, right? But to also to have their name on their philanthropy. Does anybody in the group want to build on that? Diana, do you have anything else after I stole all your
No.
banter?
Um, I mean, I think you framed it perfectly. I mean, I think we're lucky to be in a time where, when there's an opportunity to give, it's not, let me ask my husband, or my partner. It's, the way I looked at this is I want to do this. Support me. That's how the conversation went, and I think that I love seeing or being in a time where like I don't have to ask. A lot of the times, Megan, you were telling me that the stats show that there's more women that are educated than men now. So women will have more of an opportunity to make these decisions. And I think it's important to talk about this on Women's Day because I think the opportunity really is there. And by learning from each other and talking about it, I think that that really inspires other women to do the same. And, when I see role models out there, Melinda Gates, looking to see what she's done, it's incredible just to see her push forward and kind of do good in the world. I'd love to see women continuing to lead that path.
Yeah, totally
Yeah,
agree.
Yeah, and even in my town here in Englewood, New Jersey, there are a lot of women's groups, women-driven community networks, I would say, here in the town of Englewood, and even just in New Jersey, where women are really driving the community giving and, the women driving the support groups. So I think it's important to give back because we're building these communities that ultimately build societies, right? So I think it's so important to give back to women because I see women doing it here, I'm a part of a couple of these groups and it's really, really exciting to be, in close proximity to what's happening. And I think it's just so important for our larger society.
Yeah, thank you.
yeah, Charmaine, that's really interesting. I was thinking about that today as I sort of mentally prepared for this panel. I was thinking how if you're not really giving back into your society, you're really just kind of living and doing stuff. But it's when you start to give back and you build that real community spirit that you start to really feel, I guess, what it is to be a human, and part of something bigger. And that's really important. And I see that women often support each other differently. I think that was a question you had before, Megan, supporting each other a little bit differently in than I see men do. And I think it is that sharing stories and really helping each other connect. So I think that's great. After we last spoke, Diana, you mentioned that women often give emotionally, and I thought that can't be right. I'm like a heavy science robot. Like I don't really give emotionally. So I had to really think about it, and I thought of my list of charities that I donate to. That my husband and I, each have our own little list of what we want to do. And you're absolutely right. I do give emotionally. I just kind of couched it in. Of course, I want to give to these medical research areas, but I realize all the medical research is, linked back to some sort of health issue within my family, and it would be lying if I said I wasn't a sucker for a sad dog and a donation when I go shopping. Like if you want to get me, it's would you like to give $5 for so children can read? I think how can I not give $5 for children to read? So I do, I always that does tug at my heartstrings, but I hadn't realized it. So thank you for exposing that to myself.
I love this idea of the science robot. That's great. And I think, that is exactly what Charmaine said earlier too, right? Like we have these conversations and then you just feel like you feel full, right? And you feel like you're ready to get back out there and find something that you're really interested in and passionate in. Talina, I see that you've come off mute.
Yeah, I think Gina had such an important point of like being some part of something bigger because I think that especially as a student, you kind of go through everyday life. You're kind of, going through the motions of, assignments and of applications and, getting up in the morning and just making sure you're on time. And I think that on days like International Women's Day and days that commemorate certain groups of people or shared experiences, I think it's a moment to kind of sit back and think about, okay, I may have experienced that challenge. I think that there's also so many other people out there, especially as a woman who've experienced similar challenges, especially within an academic setting or within a setting where you're trying to advocate for something and you want your voice to be heard, but not necessarily for you, but rather for also this whole group of people. So I think it's a moment to kind of come together as a community and think about there are so many shared experiences and just being there for one another, I think is super important and something that might not be so prominent in everyday life, but is an important thing to reflect on.
Yeah, I totally agree. Gina, I wrote that down, if you're not giving back, right? Then like you're just living, you're just doing things. And personally, it's been a year since I've sat on a board. Now I travel more than any human I know. So I wasn't doing a great job at the last board I was on, which Gina was in fact a humane society. So I'll tell you, I am a sucker for any sad dog story, goodness gracious. And now I understand how that fundraising works so well. But you're right, after our last conversation as a group, I thought, I really need to figure this out, right? I need to, if I don't have the time right now to sit on a board, then, what is out there, where I can get involved, right? In the capacity, going back to the capacity conversation, I guess, that we all had. So certainly from the people in the audience, would love to hear if you're volunteering, where you're volunteering, or where you have volunteered. I do own apology because I absolutely understand that Girl Guides is far more than camping. My sister was a brownie and learned more skills and really how to build community, I think, and that idea of leadership. So I certainly didn't mean to reduce it to camping. Although I do think that your ability to stay alive in nature is very important, and I wish I had learned that in some capacity as a child. Um, so in our last 15 minutes, let's talk about either some advice, or something that you really want the audience to take away. So we've had, between us, we've had two or three conversations, and what I really love to hear is how we've each gone back and reflected on them, right? And how does that apply to our current lives? What are we doing? How are we engaging? Why are we engaging? And so what do we, if anything, want people to take away from today and really think about?
Maybe I'll start. I think I want people to just do it. Just get involved. Find something you're passionate about. It can be something very small, or it can be something big and flashy, whatever appeals to you, and just do it. Just give it a try and donate some time, and or if you don't have time, then financial donation. But I think that just stepping outside your comfort zone and finding something you're passionate about to give to would be what I would challenge everyone to do in the next few weeks.
Thank you. I agree.
And then just following up on Gina's advice just to do it, I think too, if you just even sit down for a minute or so and just kind of acknowledge all the things that you have, right? I think giving comes from the sense of gratitude, right? So if you just spend a couple minutes just thinking about all the things that you're blessed with, whether it's good health or family or connections or experiences, I think that will motivate you to give. So if you're a little bit hesitant, just kind of think about the resources that you have and the blessings that you have, and then you'll be kind of pushed to do something.
I guess
Thank
the
you.
hesitancy also plays a part of like, where do I even start? Sometimes you don't even know where to start when you want to give. Like, how do I even sit on a board? How do I even get involved in certain things? So maybe just asking for help would be my advice. Like, take just reaching out to people, branching out to people just asking them, how did you do it? How did you get involved? Or maybe, what advice do you have for me based on how you know me? I think just asking for help is super important, and it's never a sign of I don't know what I'm doing, but rather I'm really invested and I really want to do something, and it just shows strength.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I know I was certainly that kid in the mostly math class, right? But I didn't want to ask a question. I didn't want to put my hand up. I didn't want to look stupid. And so I agree, right? I think for many of us, learning to ask for help, and then it goes back to the conversation so many of us have had. But Diana really, I think, really narrowed in for me on that. You ask for help, you get different perspective, right? You build your community, and just the importance of being vulnerable, I guess, and willing to do that. Diana, I see you're off mute.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say that if you don't know where to get started, the community kind of is where I would start. And what community do you want to be part of? Is it going to be like the Girl Guides community? Is it going community? Is it going to be education? Start broad. And for me, if we're going back to emotional connection, it's the part where you feel like you can make the most impact. And I'm not saying it's like just financially. It's also your time, and it's just great to be able to find a community that you like working with and that really aligns with your interest area too. Like when I moved out to Vancouver, I volunteered with the Autistic Snowboarding Society. And it was just really to connect with fellow snowboarders that just want to help. Like it was just as simple as that. I was like, well, I have time, lots of time. I moved out here with no job. So, I spent a bunch of time out there and it was great. Like I learned so many things about autism that I had not known of before, but there was this overlap. Like we all loved being outside in the snow. And so start with something fun and it'll all just kind of follow from there.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And it's again, I've been thinking about this, and some of you know my My sister had a stroke at 30 and is quite physically disabled. Um, and that was not an area of society that I knew anything about, right? And all of a sudden, I found myself in a position where I've got a 30-year-old woman in a wheelchair whose toddler needs to be in a stroller, and somebody's parked too close to the disabled parking, right? And the accessible door doesn't open, and it's just a gong show before you've even managed to get into the grocery store. And so that was a change for me. And I see Talina, your face, you've had similar experiences in some capacity, and it wasn't until I really understood, for me, it was understand the need, right? And then has the passion to really get involved, both financially and with my time. But yeah, this conversation has made me has reminded me that it's not a burden, right? To give back, whether it's your time or whatever it is, when you're so deeply passionate about it and committed to seeing change, which I think I've heard from each of you. And certainly, Talina has a very impressive third year, is already putting into action. I don't know, Talina, if there's anything that you wanted to build on that.
Covered it really well. I think it's a piece of understanding and also just reflecting on the fact that just because, like for my example, I'm an ally. So when I give to the disability community, it's not because they can't do it themselves. It's not that they aren't amazing advocates for themselves. It's just that because it touches so close to home, I really feel that it's really important for me to support what they're doing and kind of raise their voices. And just, involving those people in the discussions that you're having and not being like, oh, I'm coming in as an outsider. Here's what you must need or what you must know or how I must help you, but rather, how can I actually give that's beneficial to your community, and bringing them into that conversation, I think is so important and something I try to keep at the center of all the work that I do.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So in the world of AI, I did also put this into chat. I don't know if anybody else plays this game, but I often like to see what ChatGPT thinks about what I'm doing. And I know, Diane, I'm so sorry. There was probably one of your tools that I should have used instead. So next year, I will absolutely use something that is not ChatGPT. But this year, for simplicity's sake, I totally did. And like usual, it actually gives me an answer that I wish I could articulate by myself. And it says, give to gain is important for International Women's Day because the concept reflects how investing in women and girls creates broader benefits for families, communities, and society as a whole. When resources, opportunities, and support are directed towards women, the returns multiply within society, economics, and culturally. Which I think, at least, you know what, for me, stand like that feels true. And I think, when we think about women, I often don't think about that broader impact because I don't have children. But spending 2 days with my nephew and getting to watch something like the Ice Hotel, right, or getting on an airplane for the first time, or any of those things through the eyes of a child, really, really lets me see how important it is that we continue to uplift, right, the future generations, but really understand, I think, the role that women play as mothers, as aunts, I like to tell myself, but within society. So we have a couple more minutes. I don't know if there's anybody shout out to Katie who tagged us on her Instagram. Oh, okay. Shout out to Katie who tagged us on her Instagram. Great work. Uh, is there anything that anybody else, either from the in the chat, wants to throw in, or that this group wants to add in our sort of final thoughts? My Ice Hotel story really did it. In that case, let me get a plug-in for the Ice Hotel. You got to have the warmest clothes on, but what a fascinating experience to come out here when it's minus 20 outside and then sleep in a room that's minus 5. Yeah, yeah,
Is
exactly. Take your
is
kids.
there a is there a Girl Guide badge for that?
Oh, imagine that. What, there probably is, and it's something really impressive that I wouldn't have been able to do as a child. Okay, well, in that case, I would absolutely like to thank everybody who joined us as a panelist. I really appreciate getting to chat with all of you. Talina, it was, I don't know, oh, the snowflakes must be from the ice hotel. I'm like a raccoon, right? Like something shiny happens on my screen and I am forced to tell everyone about it. So I won't be asked to moderate again next year. Um, but I think the takeaway for me, and I hope for everybody on this call, is figure out what you're passionate about. I love Charmaine's idea around really taking stock, right, and understand your own blessings, understand your own opportunities, understand what you have, and then chat with your friends, right, chat with your family, like really, really understand what it is that you're passionate about and where you think you can make an impact in the world. If you've decided that it's through a university, I happen to know someone who could certainly set you up with either a mentorship opportunity with some of the students. We're always looking for alumni to give back in ways like Diana and Charmaine are doing. If you're a current student, I think Talina should be an inspiration, but also help you understand that, I don't think you're ever too young to do anything, right? I don't, Talina, do you want to give a really quick shout out? Wasn't there like, what was he, 7 or 8? A child
Yeah.
that
Oh my goodness. I had the opportunity of connecting with this little 7-year-old. Now he's like 9 or 10, but back when I started, and his mom reached out saying, "You absolutely changed the way my child viewed his experience because he was in a wheelchair because of an accident. And he went through rehab and you couldn't tell, but he came home from your workshop and he said, if she's 17 and she can write a book, I'm 7 and I can start a podcast." And so his podcast is called Finnegan's Fantastics, and it's been running for I think a year and a half or two now, and they have 15, 16 episodes. And it's just like, yeah, you have the skills. And I think with social media, using it responsibly, but I think it's a very huge tool to connect with people and being able to share your message. And he's doing an incredible job. So you're never too young to start. Just ask for help. And I guess do something that you really, really care about.
Absolutely. So I think the message here is you're never too young and you're never too old, right? There is an opportunity for all of us to give back and for all of us to engage. I was also telling this group, when I was in high school, I used to run the Tuesday night shuffleboard at the local retirement community. And, I talk about having a group of women in their early 60s who are my friends now, but those women in their 80s and 90s, like they had lived lives that I couldn't begin to imagine when I was a teenager, right? So the amount that I gained from them, they loved having somebody young to play their shuffleboard with on Tuesday, but I learned more about life on those Tuesday nights than I ever could have. So get engaged, figure out what you're excited about. Um, Certainly, if you want to engage at the university, reach out to me. If you would like to give back or you would like to find out more, Sharon has just posted a QR code because that's how much technology has come around in the last 5 years. But huge, oh, there, and that I think was her probably Vanna White, which has also aged me, showing you there who the QR code is. So huge, huge, huge thank you to everyone. And Gina, Charmaine, Diana, and Talina, this was a real honor for me to get to chat with you, and I've learned a lot from each of you. So thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you,
Thank you
Thank
for
you for
having
having
us.
us.
Everyone. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. And thanks to everyone who joined in the conversation. I am saving the chat right now, so we'll make sure that everyone on the conversation gets to see your comments. If there's anything else that you'd like to add, you have about 30 seconds until I save it. Thanks so much, everyone.